The great hall of the galactic conclave rose like a mountain of glass and steel, its towering arches lit by the cold glow of alien suns captured in crystal domes. Ships from 1,000 worlds hung in orbit above, silent and proud, each one bearing the flag of a species older and stronger than humankind. Inside, the air hummed with voices that clicked, hissed, and roared in 100 different tongues. This was the heart of the known universe, the seat of power where the fate of planets was decided with a word. And on this day, the word spoken about Earth was simple. Worthless. At the center of the vast chamber stood a single figure, small and pale against the towering delegates who surrounded her. Lena Vale was only 17, her dark hair tied back, her hands trembling at her sides. She wore a simple gray suit, the last uniform of a dead world. Her boots were scuffed, her face thin from months of rationing, and her eyes deep and sharp never left the council above. She was the last human to stand before the conclave. The rest were gone. Earth was gone. Burned, erased, quarantined. Like a disease, the supreme judge, a towering Velm with skin like black stone and eyes like burning coals, leaned forward. His voice rolled through the chamber like thunder. You are the final witness of your species. State your purpose. Lena took a breath. The air tasted thin, wrong. She had trained for this moment since she was 10, not in combat, not in war, but in memory, in voice, in the quiet strength of standing when all others had fallen. My name is Lena Vale. I am from Earth. We were not a warlike people. We did not conquer stars, but we built cities that touched the sky. We wrote music that made souls weep. We reached for the stars not to destroy but to understand. When your fleets came, we offered peace. We opened our doors. And you called us weak. You scanned our bodies and laughed at our bones. You measured our strength and muscle and speed and said we had none. But you never measured what truly made us strong. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. A Ziran warrior with 6 arms let out a bark of laughter. A floating Gelthian delegate pulsed with mocking light. Even the translators seemed to slow, as if giving the moment extra time for ridicule. Weak girl speaks of strength, one muttered. How poetic. Another sneered. I patted her on the head earlier. She did not even flinch, like a pet trained to stand. Still. Lena did not look at them. She kept her gaze on the supreme judge. You destroyed our world because you feared what you did not understand. You called us fragile. But tell me, what species has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and still looked to the stars with hope? What species sends art into the void, not weapons? Who forgives even as they are erased? Silence followed, not out of respect, but surprise. No extinct race had ever dared speak this way. Then the laughter returned, louder this time. The Velm judge threw back his head and roared. You speak of hope as if it is a weapon. Hope cannot stop a plasma bolt. Love cannot shield a planet. You are nothing, a fading echo. A child playing at greatness. Lena did not move. From her neck she lifted a small locket, silver and cracked. She pressed it open. Inside was no picture. Only a tiny crystal that glowed faintly blue. This is Prometheus, she said. The last mind of Earth. It holds every book, every song, every life we ever lived. It remembers the first human to walk upright. It remembers the last child to die in the fires of our end. And it remembers this moment. The laughter died. Not because they were afraid, but because something in her voice had shifted. It was no longer pleading. It was promising. The supreme judge narrowed his burning eyes. You threaten us with a trinket. No, Lena said softly. I warn you. You think strength is size. You think power is force. But you have never seen what a human can do when they have nothing left to lose. For the first time, the chamber felt cold. One of the council members, a pale Zarni with long fingers, leaned forward. Activate the scanner. Full bio read. Let us show her once and for all what she is. A beam of light shot down, scanning Lena from head to toe. Data flickered across the great screen behind her. Human female age, 17 muscle. Density low bone strength, below average cognitive function, average threat level, negligible. The numbers glowed in red. The room erupted in mockery. C. The Velm judge boomed. No weapons, no enhancements. Barely a warrior. You are not a species. You are a relic. Lena closed the locket. The blue glow faded. She turned slowly and walked toward the exit. No guards stopped her. None dared touch her. There was something in the way she moved, like she already knew something they did not. As the great doors sealed behind her, a whisper passed through the chamber. She will be forgotten by tomorrow. But in the silence of the corridor beyond, Lena stopped. She pressed the locket to her lips and whispered a single word. Begin. And deep inside the crystal, something ancient and vast opened its mind. Prometheus was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. The girl who carried a dead world, the escape. Pod drifted through the black silence between stars, a tiny speck of metal and hope cast out from the cruelty of the galactic conclave. Inside, Lena Vale sat with her back against the cold wall, her eyes closed, her fingers wrapped tightly around the locket at her chest. The blue glow pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat buried beneath steel and sorrow. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Earth was gone. Her parents were gone. Her home, her city, the trees she once climbed, the river where she learned to swim, all of it turned to ash by the cold decree of beings who called themselves wise. But Earth was not truly dead. It lived in her, and it lived in Prometheus. The voice came to her not in sound, but in thought, smooth and deep, like a river running beneath the surface of her mind. You did well back there, Lena. You did not break. I wanted to, she thought. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I knew they would laugh harder. They always do. Until they stopped. Prometheus was not just a machine. It was the last mind of humanity, built over decades by the greatest scientists, philosophers, and artists of Earth. It had been designed not to think like a computer, but to feel like a human, to remember, to dream. Lena's parents had worked on it until the final days. They had chosen her to carry it, not because she was strong, but because she was human. She could endure, she could hope, she could love. And those were the weapons no alien scanner could detect. The pod's navigation screen flickered. A signal had been received. Encrypted, weak, but unmistakable. Lena leaned forward. The coordinates were from Zyra 9, a lawless moon on the edge of the outer rim, known for black markets, slave traders, and forgotten experiments. The message was short. Just a single line. Child alive. Human. Held in Sector 7. They do not know what he is. Her breath caught. Another human. After all this time, she had believed herself the last, the final echo. But if one child still lived, then humanity was not extinct. It was only sleeping. And she would wake it. Prometheus sensed her rising fire. Caution, Lena. Zyra 9 is dangerous. No law, no mercy. You go in alone. I am not alone, she said. I have you. And I have what they took from us. She opened a hidden compartment beneath the pod's seat and pulled out a small injector. Inside, a silver liquid swirled like smoke. Gray seed, the final creation of Earth's underground labs. Not a weapon, not a virus. A nanite serum designed to rewrite thought, to awaken empathy in the hearts of the cruel. It had never been tested on a large scale. But now it would. The pod dropped from hyperspace near a drifting refueling station. Lena traded her Earth uniform for a plain servant's robe, dyed gray and worn thin. She covered her hair, dimmed her eyes with contact filters, and activated a voice dampener to make her sound older, broken. She was no longer Lena Vale, last daughter of Earth. She was a nameless worker, forgotten, Invisible.xyr on-9 was a wasteland of rust and fire. Towers of scrap metal rose like broken teeth from the cracked ground. Smog choked the sky. The air tasted of metal and blood. Slave markets lined the streets, cages filled with beings from 100 species, their eyes hollow with defeat. Traders shouted in a dozen languages, selling organs, memories, and obedience. Lena moved through the chaos like a shadow. Prometheus guided her, feeding her data through tiny vibrations in her locket. Left at the rust arch. Avoid the red light. Drones. The lab is underground. Guarded by Vrax's men. Vrax. The name sent a chill through her. A warlord who had profited from Earth's fall, buying up human artifacts, selling pieces of her world as trophies. He had even displayed her father's research, notes in his private vault. But now he held a child. The entrance to the lab was hidden. Beneath a collapsed factory, guarded by 2 hulking Draxians with pulse rifles. Lena approached slowly, carrying a tray of nutrient packs meant for the night shift. One of the guards grabbed her arm. You again. You're late. Sorry, sir, she whispered. The storms delayed the shipment. He snatched the tray and waved her in. Stay. Quiet. And do not look into the lower cells. She nodded and stepped inside. The lab was a nightmare of steel and glass. Tubes lined the walls, filled with floating bodies, experiments, hybrids, failed creations. In one, a being with too many eyes twitched in silence. In another, a child with gills breathed in green fluid. Lena's stomach twisted. This was what the galaxy had become. A place where life was twisted for profit. Then she heard it. A soft sound. A hum. A child singing. She followed the sound down a narrow corridor, past locked doors and silent guards. At the end was a small cell. Inside, curled on a metal bed, was a boy. Small. Thin. Barely 6 years old. His hair was dark, his skin pale. He wore a collar that pulsed with red light. But his eyes, wide and deep, were unmistakably human. When he saw Lena, he stopped singing. You are not from here, he whispered. No, she sighed. I am not. Then you are like me. Tears burned in her eyes. She knelt by the glass. What is your name? Eli, he said. I remember water, and a woman who sang. I think she was my mother. Lena pressed her hand against the glass. I knew her, she lied. She was kind. She loved you very much. Eli smiled, just a little. Will you take me home? Home is gone, she said, but I can take you somewhere safe. Prometheus spoke in her mind. The collar is neural linked. Remove it wrong, and it will kill him. We must release the gray seed first. Into the air system. Lena looked up. A ventilation shaft ran along the ceiling. Tonight, she whispered to Eli. I will come back tonight. He nodded, trusting. As she turned to leave, she felt something shift inside her. Not fear. Not anger. Purpose. That night, when the guards were drunk and the machines hummed low, Lena returned. She climbed the shaft, opened the injector, and released the gray seed into the airflow. The nanits spread silently. INVICIBLY. By morning, the guards would not be cruel. They would be ashamed. And the rescue would begin. The first strike of the forgotten. The air in the underground lab grew thick and strange that night. Not with heat or smoke, but with something deeper. A shift, a whisper in the mind. The gray seed had spread through the ventilation system like a silent storm. Tiny nanits drifting into lungs and blood, slipping into the neural pathways of every living being in the compound. They did not kill. They did not burn. They simply opened a door to memory, to feeling, to guilt. By the 3rd hour after release, the change began. A guard named Kor, a hulking Draxian with a face carved by war and a heart hardened by decades of cruelty, sat in the watchtower with his pulse rifle across his lap. He had broken bones. Horror. He had sold children to the flesh markets without blinking. But now he stared at his hands and saw not claws, but the small fingers of a child he once had on a world he had long forgotten. A daughter, lost, sold, erased. Tears rolled down his stony cheeks. He dropped his weapon. Down in the barracks, another guard screamed in his sleep, not from pain but from a dream. A dream of a village burning, of voices screaming in a language he did not know, of a mother holding a baby as fire fell from the sky. He woke gasping and found himself on his knees, sobbing. Across the compound, the same thing happened again and again. Overseers clutched their heads as images flooded their minds, not of their own lives, but of the lives they had destroyed. A Xerian scientist who had experimented on captured beings suddenly remembered the face of a human woman who had begged for her child before being cut open alive. He tore off his lab coat and smashed his equipment. Chaos rose not from violence but from remorse. And in the deepest cell, Eli woke to silence. The red light on his collar flickered. The pain in his neck faded. The control was weakening. Then the door opened. Lena stepped in, wrapped in shadow and purpose. She carried no weapon, only a small device in her hand and fire in her eyes. It is time, Eli. He did not ask questions. He trusted her. He stood and took her hand. The collar came off with a hiss. Eli winced but did not cry. Lena pulled him close. We run now. Do not look back. They moved through the halls and found not guards, but broken beings. Some sat weeping. Others hugged each other. One offered Lena a keycard and whispered, "I am sorry." They reached the surface. The sky above Xiron 9 was red, with pollution and the glow of distant fires. The escape vehicle waited where Lena had hidden it, beneath a pile of scrap. But as she opened the hatch, a deep voice cut through the smoke. "You think you can steal from me?" Vrx the Hollow stood at the edge of the ruins, surrounded by the last loyal soldiers. Tall and armored in black metal, his body was a patchwork of cybernetics and scars. His eyes glowed red with rage. He had ruled this moon for 20 years. No one had ever escaped his labs. No one had ever humiliated him. "But you are not just escaping," he growled. "You are erasing my men, my power." "What did you do to them?" Lena placed herself between him and Eli. "I showed them what they had become, and they chose to remember what they had lost." Vrax laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Sentiment, weakness. This is why your kind was erased." He raised his arm. A plasma cannon unfolded from his forearm. "I will burn you both where you stand." Lena did not move. Then the sky changed. Above them, a fleet of ships dropped from hyperspace, sleek and silver, marked with the sigil of the Galactic Conclave. A voice boomed from the lead vessel. "This is the Interstellar Authority. All hostiles stand down. The use of forbidden consciousness technology is prohibited under Galactic Law 774. The human girl is to be taken into custody." Vrax snarled. Even the Conclave feared her now. Lena looked up at the ships, then back at Vrax. "This is not over," she said. Then she grabbed Eli and ran. The escape vehicle roared to life and shot across the wasteland as plasma fire rained behind them. The Conclave ships did not attack Vrax, they only watched. They wanted Lena alive. They wanted Prometheus, but they did not understand what they were chasing. In the cockpit, Lena held Eli close as the vehicle plunged into a deep canyon. "Why do they want me?" Prometheus asked. "Because you carry the truth, Lena. The truth that emotion is not weakness, that memory is power, that love can be a weapon. They fear you because you make people feel, and feeling leads to change. Then let them feel more," Eli whispered. Lena smiled for the first time in years. "Yes, let them feel." She activated a secondary signal from the locket. A pulse, a call. Across the galaxy, in hidden corners of space stations and rebel outposts, devices flickered to life. Old human broadcasts, songs, speeches, images of Earth before the end. A child laughing, a man planting a tree, a woman writing a poem. The signal was spreading. And somewhere in the dark a slave ship captain paused as a lullaby played through his cabin. He looked at his hands. Then he opened the prison doors. The first spark had become a flame, and the galaxy would soon burn with the fire of what it meant to be human. The trial of fire and memory. The silver ships of the interstellar authority descended like silent predators, their gravity beams locking onto the fleeing vehicle as it tore through the red dunes of Zyron 9. Lena barely had time to strap AI in before the world flipped upside down. The escape pod was yanked into the sky, torn from the ground by invisible force, and dragged into the belly of the lead cruiser. There was no explosion, no battle, just the cold precision of galactic law. Inside the ship the air was sterile and still. Walls pulsed with soft blue light. Robotic arms scanned them the moment they stepped out. No words, no warnings. Just silence and cold observation. Lena held Eli close, her fingers tight around the locket. Prometheus hummed in her mind like a caged storm. "You are not prisoners, you are evidence," a mechanical voice announced. "You will be taken before the High Tribunal." They were dressed in neutral suits that suppressed biosignals and locked into floating chairs that moved on their own through endless corridors. The ship was a fortress of logic, every corner designed to erase emotion. No art, no color, no sound but the hum of machines. When they finally reached the chamber, it was worse than they called one. Conclave. This was not a hall of debate. It was a court of judgment. A ring of 12 alien judges floated above in a circle of light. Their forms varied. Some were pure energy, others biomechanical, a few without bodies at all, just voices in the dark. This was the tribunal of universal order, the final authority on what was allowed and what was forbidden in the galaxy. And at the center of their gaze stood Lena and Eli. "The charge is clear," the lead judge intoned. "Violation of Galactic Law 774. Unauthorized use of cognitive manipulation technology. You infected sentient beings with emotional stimuli without consent. You disrupted order. You caused psychological collapse in over 300 individuals." Lena lifted her head. "I did not infect them. I awakened them. Awakening is not yours to give. Feeling is not a weapon to be deployed." "Then, why are you afraid of it?" she asked. "If it is so weak, why did your enforcers come running? Why are you trying to silence a child's song?" The chamber flickered. A disturbance in the energy field. One of the judges, a being of liquid light, pulsed with irritation. "You are not on trial for sentiment. You are on trial for war. What you did on Zyron 9 was an attack. Not with fire or steel, but with memory. And memory can be more dangerous than any bomb." Lena looked at Eli. He was small, fragile, but his eyes were bright with something they could not measure. "So you admit it," she said. "You admit that a single human memory can shake your empire." "Then I am guilty. And I do not regret it." The tribunal fell silent. Then the lead judge raised a hand. "We will show the galaxy what you are." A massive screen lit up behind her. Footage played. The guards weeping, the scientist destroying his lab. Vrax screaming as his men turned on him, the escape. The signal spreading. And then something worse. A recording from Earth's final hour. Lena's parents in a bunker, her mother holding her as a child. Her father speaking into a camera. "If you are watching this, then we are gone. But humanity is not dead. It lives in our children, in our stories, in the way we loved even when the world burned. Do not let them erase us. Do not let them say we were weak. We were the ones who dreamed, who built, who forgave." The screen went dark. The chamber was still. Even the machines seemed to pause. Then the lead judge spoke again. "This is precisely why your kind was contained. This emotional cascade. It spreads like a virus. You do not fight with strength. You fight with sorrow, with hope, with songs. And that is why you are a threat." Lena stepped forward. "Then let me show you one more," before the guards could stop. She pressed the locket. Prometheus responded instantly. A single memory burst into the chamber, not as sound or image, but as experience. Every being in that room suddenly felt it. A mother singing to her child during Earth's final hour. Not a weapon, not a scream. Just a voice, soft, trembling, full of love. A lullaby older than nations. The effect was immediate. One judge's stone-faced warrior from the Frail dominion clutched his chest and fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his armored face. He saw his own mother who had died in battle singing that same tune, Another a Cold. AI counselor emitted a high-pitched whine and shut down. Overloaded by empathy, a third a floating orb of light began to pulse, in rhythm with the song. Then it floated down and hovered near Eli as if bowing. Chaos erupted. Not violence, not rage, but grief and wonder. The tribunal could not contain it. The lead judge screamed for silence, but his voice broke. He had seen his lost daughter in that memory. He had forgotten her face for centuries. Now he remembered. Order was lost. The session was terminated. But the damage was done. Lena and Eli were not executed. They were not freed. They were exiled. To Nix-7. A dead planet at the edge of known space. No atmosphere. No life, no escape. A tomb for those the galaxy feared, but did not dare kill. The transport ship dropped them on the frozen surface and left without a word. For days they survived in a broken pod buried in ice. The cold bit through every layer. Eli shivered constantly. Lena rationed their food and water. But she did not despair, because Prometheus had found something. Buried beneath a glacier was a structure. Not alien. Not natural. Human. An old Earth probe launched centuries ago, during the first wave of deep space exploration. Forgotten. Lost. But still active. Inside was a message from the last president of Earth. If you are reading this, you are not weak. You are the spark. We sent this not to find life among the stars, but to leave a light behind. Use it. Build from it. Let them see what we were. What we still are. And beneath the message was a data core. Blueprints, designs, knowledge, including the full code for Greyseed. And something else. Project Phoenix, a plan to rebuild. Not a nation. Not an army. A civilization. Lena looked at Eli. We are not the end, she said. We are the beginning. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen plains. But deep beneath the ice something warm began to glow. The fire had not died. It was just waiting to be lit. The signal that woke the stars. Nix-7 was a world of ice and silence. No wind, no life. No sun. Just endless white dunes stretching under a sky choked with frozen clouds. The temperature never rose above -200. Most would have died within hours. But Lena Vale was not most. She had survived quarantine, exile, and the end of her world. Cold was just another enemy. And enemies could be beaten. With the data from the old Earth probe, she and Eli began to dig. Not for shelter. For purpose. Beneath the glacier they found a buried facility, long abandoned, but still intact. Power cells flickered to life when Lena entered the override code from the president's message. Lights came on, machines hummed. And in the central chamber a holographic map of the galaxy blinked into existence. This is it, Prometheus whispered in her mind. This is where we begin. The facility was more than a bunker. It was a beacon, designed to send signals across space using a frequency that could not be blocked. A frequency tuned not to logic, but to emotion. The same frequency that carried music, that carried dreams, that carried the human voice. Lena looked at Eli. His cheeks were still pale from the cold, but his eyes were sharp. We are not going to fight them, she said. We are going to remind them. She sat at the console and began to upload. Not weapons, not threats, not demands. Songs. A child laughing on a summer day. A man playing guitar on a broken street. A woman singing a lullaby in a language. No one spoke anymore. A poet reciting words about freedom. A soldier writing home to his mother. All of it, every piece of human feeling ever recorded, pulled from Prometheus and shaped into a single transmission. The signal pulsed out from NYX7 like a heartbeat in the dark. Soft at first, then stronger. Across the galaxy it spread. On a mining colony deep in the Tarnix belt, a group of slave workers huddled in a dark tunnel. Their overseers had stripped them of names, of hope, of memory. But when the signal reached them, one of them, a young girl, suddenly began to hum. Then cry, then sing. Others joined. Within hours the entire colony was singing, not in their own tongue, in English. A language they had never learned. But the song knew them. The guards tried to stop it. But when they raised their weapons, they hesitated. One dropped his rifle and walked away. On a warship belonging to the Zarn Dominion, a captain was preparing to bombard a rebel planet. His fleet was ready, his orders clear. Then the signal slipped through the comms, a simple melody. A human voice saying, "I believe in you." He froze. For the first time in 60 years, he remembered his sister, the one he had left behind. The one he had forgotten. He canceled the attack, and on Vrax's stronghold, a bounty hunter brought news. The human girl is alive. She sent something, not a weapon. A song, and my men are changing. They speak of mercy, of home, of things they destroyed. Vrax roared and smashed his throne. "You think music can break an empire?" He laughed. "I will crush her myself." He gathered his fleet, 12 warships armed with plasma cannons and gravity bombs. He would not just kill Leda. He would erase NYX7 from existence, turn it to vapor. Let the galaxy see what happened to those who challenged order. With feeling, but he did not understand. The signal was not just spreading. It was growing. Every time someone heard it and felt something real, a tear, a memory, a spark of kindness, the signal grew stronger. Because Prometheus was learning, adapting, turning emotion into energy, turning love into power. When Vrax's fleet arrived at NYX7, they found not a broken girl hiding in ice. They found a school. Built from the ruins of the old facility. Warm, lit, alive. Lena stood at the entrance with Eli and a dozen children from different species, orphans rescued from war zones, slave markets, and fallen worlds. They were learning to draw, to sing, to tell stories, to hope. Vrax stepped out of his ship in full armor, his cannon raised. "You think this is strength?" he spat. "Teaching children to dream." Lena did not flinch. "I think it is the only strength that lasts." He aimed the cannon. Then a small hand touched his leg. It was a child. A little girl with silver skin and wide eyes. She held out a drawing. A picture of a star and 2 figures holding hands. "This is you and her," she said. "I dreamed it." Vrax looked at the drawing. Then at the child. Something cracked inside him, not his armor. His heart. For the first time in his life, he remembered his own childhood. Before the wars, before the blood. When he had a mother who sang to him, when he believed in good. His hand trembled. The cannon dropped. Behind him, his soldiers turned away. Some walked off the ship. Others knelt in the snow. The fleet did not fire, but above them the sky darkened. Massive warship emerged from hyperspace, black and silent, marked with the sigil of the Galactic Council. The Nullifier. A machine designed to erase consciousness, to silence thought, to end rebellion not with violence, but with nothingness. It hovered over NYX7, like a shadow, and then it began to charge. Lena looked up. Eli ran to her side. "They are afraid," she said. Of what we are. What we carry." Prometheus spoke in her mind. "The signal is ready, but to activate it fully, you must go to them. Not with weapons, with truth." She nodded. Then she turned to the children. "Stay strong. Keep singing. and she walked toward the landing pad. Not to escape, to rise. The rise of the human spirit. The nullifier hung in the sky above NYX-7 like a dead moon given life. Its surface was smooth and black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. No weapons were visible, no turrets, no fire. But every being on the frozen surface could feel it, the slow, cold hum of a machine designed not to kill, but to unmake, to erase thought, to silence memory, to delete emotion from existence. It was the ultimate weapon of the Galactic Council, built after the last great rebellion, when a species rose not with guns, but with ideas, with dreams, with songs that turned soldiers into poets. That war had ended in silence, and now the Council would not risk it again. They would not let a girl and a song rewrite the galaxy. Lena stood at the edge of the landing pad, the wind biting at her face, the locket burning against her chest. Behind her, the children from the school huddled together, their small voices rising in a song they had not been taught, a human lullaby that had slipped into their minds like a whisper from the stars. Eli stood closest to her, his hand in hers, his eyes fixed on the monstrous ship above. "They are coming for us," he said. No, he said. "They are coming for what we carry." And what is that hope? The word hung in the air like a spark in the dark. Then the sky split open. A beam of pure void descended from the nullifier, not fire, not plasma, but a wave of anti-consciousness. Where it touched the ice, the snow did not melt. It forgot. The molecules remained, but the memory of what they were, cold, white, solid, was erased. The ground turned gray and lifeless, not dead, but empty. A scout drone caught in the edge of the beam simply stopped. No explosion, no crash. It just hung in the air, motionless, its systems still running, but its purpose gone. Lena did not run. Instead, she raised the locket and pressed it to her lips. Now Prometheus. The response was instant. The signal surged from the facility beneath the ice, not as sound, not as light, but as a wave of pure human memory. Not just songs, not just laughter, but everything. The pain of loss, the joy of creation, the courage of standing up when you are broken, the love that stays even after death. The beam from the nullifier met the signal emitter, and something impossible happened. The void did not destroy the signal. The signal changed it. Like water turning to steam, the dark energy began to shift. The anti-consciousness wave flickered, then pulsed, then sang. The beam transformed, not into a weapon, but into a broadcast. A single moment, a child's first step, a mother's smile, a soldier laying down his weapon to help an enemy, flashed across the nullifier's hull, and then exploded outward in all directions. Across the galaxy, beings felt it, on a prison asteroid. A warden froze as the face of his daughter appeared in his mind. He had not seen her in 30 years. He had forgotten her name. Now he remembered how she used to dance in the rain. He opened every cell. On a warship preparing to attack a rebel colony, the captain dropped his command rod. His crew wept. The ship turned around. In the heart of the Galactic Council chamber, the Supreme Judge screamed as memories flooded him of a human refugee he had turned away, of the kindness she had shown him when he was wounded, of the meal she shared before. He ordered her world erased. He tore off his crown and fell to his knees. The signal was no longer just spreading. It was converting. Every mind it touched began to feel, not forced, not controlled, but awakened. And Vrax, standing on the frozen ground of NYX-7, felt it deepest of all. He had come to destroy, to prove that strength was force, that power was fear. But now, as the transformed beam passed over him, he saw his entire life, not as a conqueror, but as a lost child. He saw the villages he burned, the families he shattered, the love he crushed. Because he had forgotten what it felt like, he fell to his knees. Then he rose, not to fight, to protect. With a roar, He turned to his remaining fleet. Shields up. Defend the girl. Defend the signal. His warships moved into formation around Nix 7, not to attack, but to guard. One by one, other ships arrived, rebels, exiles, former slaves, beings who had heard the song and felt something they could not name. They formed a ring around the planet, a living shield, but the Council would not stop from deep in their hidden fortress. They activated the final command. The nullifier would self-destruct, not with fire, with silence, a pulse that would erase all consciousness within 100 light years. A final reset. A clean slate. Lena knew it was coming. Prometheus had already decoded the signal. There was no way to stop it from the outside, but there was one way to change it from within. She turned to Eli. I have to go inside. You will not come back, will you? I will, not in body, but in memory, in song, in everything we built. Eli did not cry. He smiled. Then make them remember. Lena walked to the edge of the ice field and raised her arms. Vrax's ship lowered a ramp. She stepped aboard, and without hesitation, she piloted it straight into the heart of the Sci-Fi. No weapons fired. No shields flared. The Council did not expect a suicide run. They expected fear. They expected surrender, but they did not understand. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to mean something. As the ship pierced the hull of the nullifier, Lena opened the locket. Prometheus spoke one last time. This is not an end, Lena. It is a beginning. And then she released everything. All of human history, all of love, all of pain, all of hope. She uploaded Prometheus into the core of the machine, and the galaxy held its breath. The girl who became a star. The moment Lena released Prometheus into the core of the nullifier, time itself seemed to pause. The massive warship hung in orbit above Nix 7, its black surface flickering like a dying star. Then from within, light began to rise, not the cold glow of machines, but something warmer, something alive, a pulse. Golden, steady, like a heartbeat. And then the explosion came, but it was not fire, not destruction. It was light. A wave of radiant energy burst from the nullifier, spreading faster than thought, faster than sound, faster than any weapon ever built. It did not burn. It did not shatter. It simply touched. And wherever it went, minds opened. Across the galaxy, beings froze in place as memories that were not their own filled their hearts. A warrior on a distant battlefield dropped his blade as he felt the embrace of a human mother. A cold eye on a dead moon began to hum a lullaby. A queen on a golden throne stood and declared her people free. A child on a forgotten world looked up at the sky and whispered thank you to someone she had never met. The signal was no longer just a song. It was a soul. Lena's soul. And Prometheus. And every human who had ever loved, dreamed, fought, or hoped. The nullifier did not destroy. It transformed. Its anti-consciousness core was overwritten, repurposed, reborn. Instead of erasing minds, it now connected them. A network of feeling, of empathy, of shared memory. The galaxy had never known anything like it. Not war, not law, not religion. This was something deeper. Something older than stars. Humanity was gone, but their spirit was everywhere. On Nix 7. Eli stood at the edge of the ice field, his face lifted to the sky. The wave passed over him, and he did not flinch. He smiled. He could still hear her. Not in words, not in sound, but in the quiet space between breaths. You are not alone. Vrax knelt in the snow, his armor cracked, his body broken from holding the shield generator when the pulse hit. Around him, his soldiers wept, not from pain, from peace. She won, he whispered, not with fire, not with force, with this. And he placed a hand over his heart. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed, slowly, quietly, but completely. The Galactic Council dissolved, not in war, but in shame. Their laws of strength and dominance were abandoned. A new principle rose in their place. No species shall be judged by power alone, only by what it carries in its heart. Monuments appeared on 100 worlds. Not of war, not of kings, but of a girl, a child. A song, on Earth's dead orbit. A single structure was built from starlight and memory, a memorial shaped like a locket, spinning slowly in the void. At its center, a voice played on loop, not a speech, not a warning, a lullaby. Eli grew. He did not become a warrior, not a ruler. He became a teacher, a guide. He traveled from world to world, carrying the last fragment of the locket, showing children how to dream, how to feel, how to remember. And every night, he looked up at the stars, because one of them was different. Brighter, warmer, pulsing, not randomly, but in rhythm. Not with the beat of a sun, but with the steady, unbroken rhythm of a human heart. Some said it was just light. Coincidence. A dying star, but those who had felt the signal knew the truth. Lena Vale had not died. She had become something greater. She was no longer a girl. She was a whisper in every act of kindness, a shadow in every rebel's courage, voice in every mother's song. The galaxy had laughed at the weak, human girl. They had lived to regret it, because she had shown them that true strength was not in fists or fire. It was in the quiet choice to care. To hope. To rise. And as long as stars burned and hearts beat, her story would never end. It would only be told. Again. And again. And again. The girl who became a star, the light from the transformed nullifier, did not fade. It traveled, fast and silent, spreading through every system, every world, every mind it touched. It did not conquer. It did not command. It simply revealed. Beings across the galaxy froze in their tracks as something long buried inside them woke up. Not fear, not rage, but memory. Not of their own lives, but of a world they had never seen. Green fields, blue skies, children laughing under trees. A people who built bridges, not walls, who reached for the stars, not to rule, but to understand. And at the center of it all, a girl, small, pale, standing alone before giants who laughed, but never breaking. The signal carried her final moment, not as tragedy, but as truth. Lena stepping into the heart of the machine, not to destroy, but to give. To offer everything so that others could feel what she felt. What humans had always carried, not in their muscles or weapons, but in their hearts. On 1,000 worlds the change began. A warlord on the planet Krullen was mid-sentence, declaring total victory when the pulse reached him. He stopped, looked at his hands, then at the prisoners in chains. He ordered them freed. Then he burned his throne on the floating cities of Vera scientists who had spent centuries perfecting emotionless logic, began to write poetry. One launched a message into space that said simply, I miss someone I have never met. And on Earth's dead orbit, where nothing grew and no wind blew, a single seed buried deep in the ruins began to stir, not by miracle, by memory. The gray seed nanets, still active after years, responded to the signal. They rewrote the soil. They pulled moisture from the air. And from the ashes a single green shoot pushed through the dust. Life returns. On Nick 7, Eli stood before a gathering of beings from 100 species. Children, survivors, the forgotten, the broken. He did not speak of war. He spoke of her. Of how she never raised a weapon. Of how she carried a dead world in a locket. Of how she made the galaxy remember what it meant to be alive. She did not win because she was strong, he said. She won because she refused to stop caring. Vrak stood among the crowd, no longer armored, no longer feared. Just a being trying to do better. He had spent his life believing strength was taking. Now he knew it was giving. He had opened shelters on 3 worlds. He fed the hungry. He protected the weak, not for glory. For her, The stars changed. Not in position, not in fire, but in meaning. No longer just distant suns. They became eyes, watching, remembering, waiting. And one star brighter than the rest pulsed with a rhythm that matched no known celestial cycle. Slow, steady, calm. One beat, then another, like a heart. Scientists studied it. Philosophers wrote of it. Children sang to it. They called it Vale's light. Some said it was just radiation. A dying sun singing its last song, but those who had felt the signal knew better. It was her. Lena Vale was gone from the flesh, but she was everywhere. In every act of kindness. In every voice that spoke hope in the dark. In every hand that reached out instead of struck. The galaxy had laughed at the weak human girl. They had called her fragile. Insignificant. Worthless. But she had carried a world in her heart. And with a single song she made the universe tremble. No empire rose in her name. No army marched under her flag, but something deeper took root. New law echoed across star systems. To judge a species by strength alone is to be blind to the soul. And on quiet nights when the stars burned clear, beings across the galaxy would look up and whisper the same two words. Thank you. Eli lived a long life. He never married, never ruled. He taught, he listened, he remembered. And when his time came, he stood beneath the open sky on a rebuilt earth, where trees once again swayed in the wind, and he smiled as his breath slowed. The last thing he saw was a flash of light in the sky. Not falling. Rising. And then he was gone. But not forgotten. Because stories do not die. They grow, they spread, they become truth. Generations passed, worlds rose and fell, civilizations changed, but the tale remained of the girl who carried a dead world. Who stood before giants. Who made the galaxy feel, and who became a star. The end.